The morning sun peeked through the curtains as Marcus Thompson woke up. He stretched his arms and yawned loudly. It was just another Monday, and like every other school day, he wasn't too excited about going to class. But Marcus had a secret weapon. He always found a way to make even the most boring days fun. Marcus lived with his dad, Dr. Elijah Thompson, who was the principal of Lincoln High School. Everyone at school respected Mr. Thompson because he was kind but firm. He believed in fairness and always tried to help both students and teachers solve their problems. Marcus loved his dad, but sometimes he wished his father wasn't so strict. After all, being the principal's son came with its own set of challenges. After brushing his teeth and getting dressed, Marcus grabbed a quick breakfast. His dad was already seated at the table, reading the newspaper while sipping coffee. "Morning, Marcus," Elijah said without looking up. "You ready for today?" "Sure thing, Dad," Marcus replied with a grin. "It's just another day at your school." Elijah chuckled. "Don't give me that look. You know I expect good behavior from you." "I'll try my best," Marcus said, though they both knew he didn't always follow the rules perfectly. Still, Elijah trusted his son to do the right thing most of the time. When Marcus arrived at school, the hallways were buzzing with energy. Students chatted noisily, comparing weekend plans or complaining about homework. Marcus joined his friends near his locker. There was Jamal, his best friend since kindergarten, Lisa, the smartest girl in their grade, and Kevin, who loved basketball almost as much as breathing. "Hey, Marcus." Jamal greeted him with a fist bump. "Did you finish Ms. Harper's essay yet? She's gonna kill us if we don't turn it in." Marcus groaned. "Not yet. That woman gives more work than anyone else in this building. I swear she hates kids." Lisa rolled her eyes. "She doesn't hate kids. She just wants us to succeed. You should take her class seriously." Yeah, Marcus muttered, opening his locker. "Easy for you to say. You're little Miss Perfect." As the bell rang, the group headed toward their first period class, English with Ms. Harper. If there was one teacher everyone dreaded, it was her. Ms. Harper was tall and thin, with sharp features and an even sharper tongue. She walked into the classroom carrying a stack of papers, her heels clicking loudly against the floor. "Good morning, class," she said in a voice that sounded anything but cheerful. "I hope you've all completed your essays. Pass them forward now." A collective sigh filled the room as students shuffled their papers together. Marcus hesitated, realizing he hadn't finished his. He glanced nervously at Jamal, who gave him a sympathetic shrug. Just then, Ms. Harper's gaze landed on Marcus. "Mr. Thompson," she said sharply, "why are you sitting there looking guilty? Did you forget to do your assignment again?" Marcus felt his cheeks grow warm. Not exactly, Ms. Harper. I just need a little more time." "A little more time," Ms. Harper repeated, raising an eyebrow. "This isn't daycare, Marcus. Deadlines exist for a reason." The entire class turned to look at him, making Marcus feel even worse. He mumbled something under his breath and handed over the half-finished essay. Ms. Harper skimmed through it briefly before setting it aside with a disapproving frown. For the rest of the period, Ms. Harper lectured the class about responsibility and hard work. Marcus tried to pay attention, but his mind kept wandering. He doodled on the corner of his notebook, drawing stick figures battling aliens. Suddenly, he heard his name called out. "Marcus, are you listening to me?" Ms. Harper demanded. Caught off guard, Marcus quickly sat up straight. "Yes, ma'am." "What did I just say about participles?" Marcus blinked, unsure what to say. The class erupted in quiet giggles, which only made Ms. Harper angrier. "If you spent less time daydreaming and more time focusing, maybe you wouldn't struggle so much," she snapped. By the time the bell finally rang, Marcus couldn't wait to leave the classroom. As he walked to his next class, he muttered to himself, "Man, that lady has no chill." Later that afternoon during art class, things took an unexpected turn. The assignment was simple: create a college using magazine cutouts and glue sticks. Most students worked quietly, but Marcus decided to add his own twist. Instead of following instructions, he started making a funny face out of random shapes. "Marcus," the art teacher, Mr. Peters, called out. "What are you doing? This is an abstract art hour." Before Marcus could respond, disaster struck. While reaching for a bottle of glue, he accidentally knocked it over. Thick, sticky liquid spilled across the table and onto his own hands. "Oh no," Marcus exclaimed, trying to wipe it off. Some of the glue dripped onto his shirt, and a few drops landed in his hair. The whole class burst into laughter, including Marcus himself. Unfortunately, Ms. Harper happened to walk by the art room at that exact moment. Hearing the commotion, she stepped inside to see what was going on. When she spotted Marcus covered in glue, her expression darkened. "Marcus Thompson," she barked. "Why am I not surprised to find you causing trouble again?" "It was an accident, Ms. Harper," Marcus explained quickly. "I swear." But Ms. Harper wasn't interested in excuses. Her patience was already thin after dealing with late assignments and distracted students earlier in the day. Without thinking twice, she grabbed a nearby bottle of super glue from the supply shelf and marched over to Marcus. "This will teach you to be more careful," she said coldly, pouring a generous amount of glue onto Marcus's head. Gasps echoed around the room as everyone watched in shock. Marcus froze, unable to believe what had just happened. The glue hardened instantly, sticking strands of his hair together in clumps. Tears welled up in his eyes, but he blinked them back, refusing to cry in front of his classmates. Ms. Harper crossed her arms, looking satisfied. "Maybe now you'll learn to act like a responsible young man instead of a child." No one dared to speak. Even Mr. Peters seemed too stunned to intervene. Slowly, Marcus stood up and gathered his things, avoiding eye contact with anyone. He left the art room with his head down, feeling humiliated and betrayed. On the bus ride home, Marcus stared out the window, replaying the incident in his mind. How could Ms. Harper do something so cruel, and why had no one stopped her? By the time he reached home, he was filled with anger and sadness. When Marcus walked through the door, Elijah noticed immediately that something was wrong. "Son, what happened?" he asked gently. Marcus hesitated, unsure how to explain. Finally, he blurted out, "Dad, Ms. Harper poured glue on my hair because I spilled some during art class." Elijah's face turned serious. "She did what?" Tears spittled down Marcus's cheeks as he recounted the story. Elijah listened silently, his jaw tightening with each word. When Marcus finished, his father placed a comforting hand on his shoulder. "We'll fix this, Marcus," Elijah promised. "No one deserves to be treated that way. Not by anyone. And certainly not by a teacher." Though Marcus felt slightly better knowing his dad was on his side, he couldn't shake the memory of the laughter and stares from his classmates. It was going to be a long night. The art room was usually a place where students could relax and express themselves. For many kids at Lincoln High School, it was their favorite class because it gave them a break from textbooks and tests. But today, the cheerful atmosphere had turned into something tense, and Marcus Thompson was at the center of it all. After spilling glue earlier, Marcus had tried to clean up the mess as quickly as possible. He didn't want to cause any trouble, but his clumsy attempt only made things worse. Sticky glue dripped onto his hands, shirt, and even his hair. When he realized how bad it looked, he couldn't help laughing nervously. It wasn't intentional. He just thought it was kind of funny. Unfortunately, Ms. Harper didn't see it that way. When she walked into the art room, her sharp eyes immediately locked onto Marcus. She frowned deeply as if she'd been waiting for him to mess up again. "Marcus Thompson," she snapped, her voice cutting through the chatter like a knife. "Why am I not surprised to find you causing trouble?" "It was an accident, Miss Harper," Marcus said quickly, holding up his glue-covered hands. "I swear." But Ms. Harper wasn't listening. Her patience had run out long ago. Earlier in the day, she'd dealt with late assignments, distracted students, and endless interruptions. Now seeing Marcus covered in glue felt like the last straw. In her mind, he was always making excuses instead of taking responsibility. Without thinking twice, Ms. Harper grabbed a bottle of super glue from the supply shelf. She marched over to Marcus, her heels clicking loudly against the floor. The whole class fell silent, watching in stunned disbelief. "This will teach you to be more careful," Ms. Harper said coldly. Before anyone could react, she poured a thick stream of super glue onto Marcus's head. Gasps echoed around the room. Some students covered their mouths in shock, while others stared wide-eyed. No one dared to move or speak. Even Mr. Peters, the art teacher, seemed frozen in place. Marcus stood there, frozen too. His heart sank as he felt the sticky liquid harden almost instantly. Strands of his hair clumped together uncomfortably, and he knew it would take hours, or maybe days, to wash it out. Tears welled up in his eyes, but he blinked them back, refusing to cry in front of his classmates. Ms. Harper crossed her arms, looking satisfied. "Maybe now you'll learn to act like a responsible young man instead of a child." The room remained silent. No one said a word, but the tension was thick enough to cut with a knife. Marcus slowly gathered his things, avoiding eye contact with anyone. He left the art room with his head down, feeling humiliated and betrayed. The laughter and stares from his classmates replayed in his mind over and over again. Heading home. On the bus ride home, Marcus stared out the window, replaying the incident in his mind. How could Ms. Harper do something so cruel? Why had no one stopped her? By the time he reached home, he was filled with anger and sadness. When Marcus walked through the door, Elijah noticed immediately that something was wrong. Son, what happened? He asked gently. Marcus hesitated, unsure how to explain. Finally, he blurted out, Dad, Ms. Harper poured glue on my hair because I spilled some during art class. Elijah's face turned serious. She did what? Tears spilled down Marcus's cheeks as he recounted the story. Elijah listened silently, his jaw tightening with each word. When Marcus finished, his father placed a comforting hand on his shoulder. We'll fix this, Marcus, Elijah promised. No one deserves to be treated that way. Not by anyone, and certainly not by a teacher. Though Marcus felt slightly better knowing his dad was on his side, he couldn't shake the memory of the laughter and stares from his classmates. It was going to be a long night. Reflections. Later that evening, Marcus sat in his room, staring at his reflection in the mirror. His hair was still stiff and matted with glue. He tried combing it, but the strands refused to budge. Frustrated, he gave up and flopped onto his bed. His mind raced with questions. Why had Ms. Harper done this? Was it because of the glue spill, or was there something deeper? Marcus couldn't help but wonder if it had anything to do with him being black. After all, Ms. Harper never treated other students, especially white ones, the same way she treated him. Downstairs, Elijah paced back and forth in the living room. He was angry, not just at Ms. Harper, but also at himself. As the principal of Lincoln High School, it was his job to make sure teachers treated every student fairly. Yet somehow, he hadn't noticed the tension between Ms. Harper and Marcus until now. Elijah picked up the phone and dialed the school's number. It was late, but he knew Ms. Harper might still be there grading papers. When she answered, her tone was clipped and professional. Ms. Harper, we need to talk. Elijah said firmly. Can you come to my office tomorrow morning before classes start? There was a pause on the other end of the line. Of course, Dr. Thompson. Ms. Harper replied cautiously. Is everything okay? We'll discuss it tomorrow, Elijah said, hanging up without giving her a chance to respond. He wasn't ready to confront her just yet. First, he needed to think carefully about how to handle this situation. A sleepless night. That night, neither Marcus nor Elijah slept well. Marcus tossed and turned in bed, replaying the events of the day in his mind. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw the faces of his classmates laughing at him. He wondered if they thought he deserved what had happened, or if they secretly agreed with Miss Harper. Meanwhile, Elijah lay awake, wrestling with his thoughts. He remembered his own experiences growing up as a black man in a predominantly white community. There had been countless times when he'd felt judged or mistreated because of the color of his skin. Those memories were painful, but they had shaped who he was today. Elijah vowed to protect Marcus from the same struggles. He wanted his son to grow up believing in fairness and equality, not fear and resentment. Tomorrow, he would address this issue head-on, with or without Ms. Harper's cooperation. Facing the truth. The next morning, Elijah arrived at school early. He sat in his office, reviewing notes and preparing for the meeting with Ms. Harper. When she knocked on the door, he gestured for her to sit down. Thank you for coming, Elijah began. I understand there was an incident yesterday involving my son, Marcus. Ms. Harper shifted uncomfortably in her chair. Dr. Thompson, I assure you it was a misunderstanding. Marcus spilled glue in the art room, and I simply wanted to teach him a lesson about responsibility. A lesson? Elijah repeated, raising an eyebrow. Pouring superglue onto a student's head is not discipline, it's abuse. Do you realize how humiliating that must have been for him? Ms. Harper opened her mouth to defend herself, but Elijah held up a hand to stop her. Let me make one thing clear, he said sternly. As the principal of this school, I expect every teacher to treat students with respect. If I hear of another incident like this, there will be consequences. For the first time, Ms. Harper looked genuinely remorseful. I didn't mean to hurt him, she admitted quietly. I was frustrated and acted impulsively. Elijah sighed. I appreciate your honesty, but actions have consequences. We'll need to address this with the school board and possibly involve the parents of other students who witnessed the incident. Ms. Harper nodded, her face pale. She knew she had made a grave mistake, one that could cost her career. Ripples in the community. By lunchtime, news of the incident had spread throughout the school. Students whispered about it in the hallways, and teachers exchanged worried glances in the faculty lounge. Some defended Ms. Harper, saying she was under a lot of stress, while others criticized her actions as unprofessional. Marcus became an unwilling symbol of resilience. Friends like Jamal, Lisa, and Kevin rallied around him, offering support and encouragement. They helped him wash the glue out of his hair after gym class, though it took nearly an hour to untangle the worst knots. "I can't believe she did that," Jamal said angrily. "She should get fired." Lisa nodded in agreement. "It's not fair. Teachers are supposed to protect us, not hurt us." Kevin added, "What if it had been someone else? Would she have done the same thing?" Marcus shrugged. "I don't know. Maybe. All I know is that it happened to me, and I'm not gonna let it bring me down." His words inspired his friends to stand up for what was right. Together, they decided to speak out about the importance of treating everyone equally, regardless of race or background. Looking ahead. As the day came to an end, Marcus felt a small spark of hope. Though the incident had shaken him, it had also brought him closer to his friends and family. With their support, he believed he could overcome this challenge, and maybe even inspire change within the school. For Elijah, the experience reinforced his commitment to creating a safe and inclusive environment for all students. He knew there was still much work to be done, but he was determined to lead by example. And for Ms. Harper, the road ahead would be difficult. She faced tough decisions and potential consequences for her actions. But perhaps in time she could learn from her mistakes and become a better teacher and person. When Marcus woke up the next morning, he felt like the world was pressing down on him. His hair was still stiff and sticky from the glue, no matter how hard he tried to wash it out. Every time he looked in the mirror, he remembered the humiliation of Ms. Harper's actions and the stares of his classmates. It wasn't just about the glue, it was about feeling small, powerless, and wronged. Downstairs, Elijah Thompson was already dressed in his usual sharp suit, ready for another day at school. But today, he wasn't focused on meetings or paperwork. His mind kept going back to what Marcus had told him last night. The image of his son sitting at the dinner table, tears streaming down his face, stayed with him. Elijah clenched his fists under the table. No one, especially not a teacher, should treat a child that way. "Marcus," Elijah said as his son entered the kitchen, "we're going to fix this together." Marcus looked up, surprised. He hadn't expected his dad to bring it up again so soon. "What do you mean?" he asked cautiously. "I've already spoken to Ms. Harper," Elijah explained. "She'll be in my office this morning to discuss what happened. I want you to know that I'm handling this seriously. You don't deserve to feel afraid or disrespected at school." For the first time since the incident, Marcus felt a flicker of hope. Maybe things could get better after all. The meeting. At school, Elijah sat in his office, reviewing notes and preparing for the meeting with Ms. Harper. When she knocked on the door, he gestured for her to sit down. Her face was pale, and her hands trembled slightly as she placed them on her lap. "Ms. Harper," Elijah began, his voice calm but firm, "I called you here to talk about yesterday's incident involving my son, Marcus." Ms. Harper swallowed nervously. "Dr. Thompson, I assure you, it was a misunderstanding. Marcus spilled glue in the art room, and I simply wanted to teach him a lesson about responsibility." Elijah leaned forward, his eyes narrowing. "A lesson? Pouring superglue onto a student's head is not discipline, it's abuse. Do you realize how humiliating that must have been for him?" Ms. Harper opened her mouth to defend herself, but Elijah held up a hand to stop her. "Let me make one thing clear," he said sternly. "As the principal of this school, I expect every teacher to treat students with respect. If I hear of another incident like this, there will be consequences." Ms. Harper looked down, avoiding his gaze. For the first time, she seemed to understand the gravity of her mistake. I didn't mean to hurt him," she admitted quietly. "I was frustrated and acted impulsively." Elijah sighed deeply. "I appreciate your honesty, but actions have consequences. We'll need to address this with the school board and possibly involve the parents of other students who witnessed the incident." Ms. Harper nodded slowly, her face red with shame. She knew she had crossed a line, a big one, and now she would have to face the fallout. Support for Marcus. After the meeting, Elijah went to find Marcus. He found him sitting alone in the library during lunchtime, flipping through a book without really reading it. Elijah pulled up a chair beside him. "How are you holding up, son?" Elijah asked gently. Marcus shrugged. "I guess I'm okay. Everyone's talking about it, though. Some kids think it's funny, while others say Ms. Harper was wrong." "That's understandable," Elijah replied. "People will always have opinions. What matters is how you feel about it." Marcus hesitated before speaking. "I feel mad and embarrassed, like I did something wrong." even though I didn't. Elijah placed a comforting hand on his shoulder. You didn't do anything wrong, Marcus. Sometimes adults make bad choices, and when they do, it's our job to hold them accountable. That's what I'm doing right now for you and for everyone else in the school. Marcus nodded, feeling a little better. Knowing his dad was fighting for him made a huge difference. Addressing the school. Later that afternoon, Elijah called an emergency assembly. He stood at the podium in the auditorium, looking out at rows of curious faces. Teachers and students alike were eager to hear what he had to say. Good afternoon, everyone, Elijah began. Yesterday, an unfortunate incident occurred between one of our teachers, Ms. Harper, and a student. While I can't share all the details, I want to emphasize that this behavior is unacceptable. Our school is built on trust, respect, and fairness. When those values are broken, we must address it openly. Whispers rippled through the crowd. Some students glanced at Marcus, who sat quietly near the back of the room. Others looked shocked, realizing how serious the situation was. Elijah continued, Ms. Harper has acknowledged her mistake and will be working with the administration to ensure this doesn't happen again. Moving forward, we will implement new training programs to help teachers manage their classrooms effectively and respectfully. He paused, letting his words sink in. To any student who feels unsafe or mistreated, please come to me or another trusted adult. Your voices matter, and we are here to listen. The room erupted into applause. Many students felt relieved that someone was finally addressing the issue. Marcus smiled faintly, knowing his dad was making a real effort to make things right. A father's promise. That evening, Elijah and Marcus sat together on the couch at home. The TV was off, and the house was quiet except for the ticking of the clock. Dad, Marcus said softly, do you think people will forget about this eventually? Elijah thought for a moment before answering. Maybe not completely, but over time, he'll remember how we handled it with courage and honesty. And hopefully he'll learn from it too. Marcus nodded. Thanks for standing up for me, Dad. I don't know what I'd do without you. Elijah smiled warmly. That's what fathers are for, Marcus. Always remember, you're never alone in this. We'll face whatever comes next together. As they sat there in silence, Marcus felt a sense of peace wash over him. Yes, the road ahead might still be tough, but with his dad by his side, he knew he could handle anything. The next morning at Lincoln High School, tension hung thick in the air. News of Ms. Harper's actions had spread like wildfire, and students couldn't stop talking about it. Some whispered angrily in the hallways, while others laughed nervously, unsure how to process what had happened. Teachers avoided eye contact with each other during meetings, knowing the incident would cast a shadow over the entire school community. For Marcus, walking into school felt like stepping into a spotlight. He could feel eyes on him wherever he went, some sympathetic, some curious, and some judgmental. It made him uncomfortable, but he tried to hold his head high. His dad's words echoed in his mind. You're never alone in this. We'll face whatever comes next together. That thought gave him strength. Meanwhile, Ms. Harper sat alone in her classroom before classes began. She stared blankly at the papers on her desk, unable to focus. The weight of her mistake pressed heavily on her chest. She replayed the moment she poured glue onto Marcus's hair over and over again in her mind. At the time, she'd convinced herself it was just a harmless punishment, a way to teach him a lesson. But now, she realized how cruel and unfair it truly was. Her hands trembled as she picked up a pen, trying to grade assignments. How could she face her students after what she'd done? Would they ever trust her again? And what about Marcus? Every time she thought about him, guilt gnawed at her insides. A difficult conversation. Later that day, Elijah called Ms. Harper back to his office for another meeting. This time, he wanted to dig deeper into why she had acted the way she did, and whether she understood the impact of her actions. Ms. Harper, Elijah began, leaning forward slightly. Let's talk about what led to yesterday's incident. Why did you decide to pour glue onto Marcus's head? Ms. Harper hesitated, twisting her fingers nervously. I don't know. I was frustrated. Marcus has been disruptive in my class for weeks, and when I saw him covered in glue in the art room, it felt like the last straw. I thought if I gave him a taste of his own medicine, he'd learn to take things more seriously. Elijah frowned. So you punished him publicly because you were upset? Yes, but no, Ms. Harper stammered, shaking her head. It wasn't supposed to be public humiliation. I just wanted him to understand consequences. But your actions were humiliating, Elijah pointed out gently but firmly. Imagine being a teenager already struggling to fit in. Now imagine having something like this happen to you in front of your peers. How do you think Marcus felt? Ms. Harper looked down, tears welling up in her eyes. I didn't mean to hurt him. I swear I didn't. Ellie just softened his tone slightly. I believe you didn't intend to harm him emotionally, but intentions don't erase outcomes. What you did was wrong, and it affected not only Marcus, but also the entire school environment. Ms. Harper nodded slowly, wiping away her tears. For the first time, she allowed herself to fully confront the truth. She had let her frustration get the better of her, and innocent people had suffered because of it. Confrontation in class. Later that week, Ms. Harper decided to address her class directly. She knew avoiding the issue wouldn't solve anything. It might even make things worse. Standing in front of her students, she took a deep breath and began speaking. Class, she said, her voice shaky but sincere, I owe all of you an apology, especially Marcus. The room fell silent. Students exchanged surprised glances, unsure what to expect. Marcus shifted uncomfortably in his seat, keeping his gaze fixed on the floor. What I did to Marcus was unacceptable, Ms. Harper continued. I lost my temper and acted without thinking about how it would affect him, or any of you. There's no excuse for treating someone that way, and I deeply regret my actions. Marcus glanced up briefly, surprised by her honesty. He hadn't expected her to apologize so openly. Part of him still felt angry, but another part recognized that admitting fault wasn't easy, especially for someone like Ms. Harper, who always seemed so strict and composed. I'm working with the administration to make sure this doesn't happen again, Ms. Harper added, and I'm committed to becoming a better teacher, one who listens and respects every single one of you. When she finished speaking, the room remained quiet for a moment. Then slowly, a few students began clapping. Others joined in, offering tentative applause. It wasn't forgiveness, not yet, but it was a start. Rebuilding trust. After class, Marcus lingered behind, unsure whether to approach Ms. Harper. She noticed him standing near the door and motioned for him to come closer. Marcus, she said softly, can we talk for a minute? He hesitated but eventually nodded and walked over. Up close, he could see the exhaustion etched on her face. For the first time, she didn't look like the stern, unapproachable teacher he'd always known. She looked human. I want to say sorry again, Ms. Harper said. What I did to you was wrong, and I hope someday you can forgive me. Marcus shrugged, still feeling conflicted. I don't know if I can forget about it, he admitted, but I guess I can try to move past it. That's all I can ask for, Ms. Harper replied, her voice trembling. Thank you, Marcus. As he left the classroom, Marcus felt a strange mix of emotions. He wasn't ready to fully forgive Ms. Harper, but he appreciated her effort to make amends. Maybe, in time, things could improve between them. A community divided. While Marcus and Ms. Harper worked toward healing their relationship, the rest of the school community remained divided. Some parents praised Elijah for addressing the situation quickly and fairly, while others criticized him for being too harsh on Ms. Harper. Letters poured into the school board, demanding answers and action. At home, Elijah received both support and backlash. Friends and colleagues encouraged him to stay strong, reminding him that standing up for justice was never easy. Critics accused him of favoritism, claiming he was protecting his son rather than considering the bigger picture. Despite the pressure, Elijah refused to back down. This isn't about Marcus or me, he told anyone who questioned his decisions. It's about creating a safe and respectful environment for every student. If we ignore issues like this, we fail everyone. His determination inspired many within the school community to reflect on their own biases and behaviors. Slowly but surely, conversations about fairness, accountability, and empathy began to take root, finding closure. By the end of the week, Marcus started to feel a small sense of closure. Things weren't perfect. He still heard whispers in the hallways, and some classmates treated him differently. But he knew progress was being made. With his dad's guidance and the support of his friends, he found the courage to keep moving forward. One afternoon, as Marcus walked home from school, he spotted Ms. Harper sitting on a bench outside the building. She looked lost in thought, staring at the ground. For a moment, he considered stopping to say hello, but then he changed his mind. They weren't there yet, not completely, but maybe someday they would be. As he turned the corner, Marcus smiled faintly. Life was messy, complicated, and sometimes painful, but it was also full of opportunities to grow, learn, and heal. And for now, that was enough. The days following Ms. Harper's apology were anything but calm at Lincoln High School. The incident had sent shockwaves through the entire community, sparking heated debates among students, teachers, parents, and even local media. Everyone seemed to have an opinion about what had happened and what should happen next. For Marcus, life felt like a whirlwind. He was at the center of it all, whether he liked it or not. Some students praised him for standing up to authority, while others whispered behind his back, questioning if he'd done something to provoke Ms. Harper. Even though he tried to ignore the rumors, they still stung. Every time someone laughed or pointed at him, he couldn't help but wonder if they saw him as a victim or as a spectacle. At home, Elijah did his best to shield Marcus from the chaos. But even he couldn't protect his son from everything. The phone rang constantly with calls from concerned parents, angry school board members, and reporters eager for a story. Elijah handled each call with patience, explaining that this wasn't just about one teacher or one student. It was about creating a better environment for everyone. Dad, Marcus said one evening after dinner, do you think people will ever stop talking about this? Elijah sighed, setting down his coffee mug. Probably not anytime soon. But remember, son, change takes time. Right now, people are reacting because they care about you, about fairness, about the school. It might feel overwhelming, but it's also proof that your voice matters. Marcus nodded, though he wasn't entirely convinced. Still, hearing his dad's words made him feel a little stronger. Mixed reactions. In the days that followed, reactions to the incident continued to pour in. Parents held meetings in the school auditorium to discuss how the administration planned to handle the situation. Some defended Ms. Harper, saying she was under immense stress and deserved a second chance. Others demanded her immediate dismissal, arguing that such behavior was unacceptable from anyone, let alone a teacher. She lost control. One parent argued during a tense meeting. We all make mistakes, but punishing her won't fix the problem. What we need is training, better support for our teachers so they can manage their classrooms without resorting to extremes. Another parent stood up, shaking their head. This isn't just a mistake. This is abuse. If she can do this to one student, who's to say she won't do it again? Our kids deserve to feel safe at school. The debate grew louder, with voices rising and tempers flaring. Elijah sat quietly at the front of the room, listening intently. When the noise finally died down, he stepped forward to address the crowd. I understand your concerns, he began, his tone calm but firm. This is a difficult situation for everyone involved. But I want to remind you that our priority must always be the well-being of our students. We cannot tolerate actions that harm them, physically or emotionally. His words earned both applause and murmurs of disagreement. Elijah knew there wouldn't be a perfect solution, but he was determined to find a path forward that prioritized fairness and accountability. Ms. Harper's struggle. Meanwhile, Ms. Harper was struggling to cope with the aftermath of her actions. Once respected and admired by many, she now found herself ostracized by colleagues and distrusted by students. Her once busy classroom grew quieter as fewer students participated in discussions. Some avoided eye contact altogether, while others openly challenged her authority. At night, she lay awake, replaying the incident over and over in her mind. She thought about Marcus, the look of shock and humiliation on his face when she poured glue onto his hair. She thought about her own childhood, growing up in a strict household where mistakes were met with harsh punishment. Had she unconsciously carried those same patterns into her teaching? One afternoon, she decided to visit the school counselor, Mrs. Patel, for advice. Sitting across from her in a small, cozy office, Ms. Harper broke down in tears. I don't know how to fix this, she confessed. I've ruined everything, not just for myself, but for Marcus too. How can I ever regain their trust? Mrs. Patel listened patiently before responding. It won't be easy, she admitted, but rebuilding trust starts with honesty and consistency. Keep apologizing, not just to Marcus, but to the whole school community. Show them through your actions that you're committed to change. Ms. Harper nodded, wiping her eyes. What if they never forgive me? That's a risk you'll have to take. Mrs. Patel replied gently. But remember, forgiveness isn't always immediate. Sometimes it takes time and effort. Leaving the office, Ms. Harper felt a glimmer of hope. She didn't expect instant redemption, but she vowed to keep trying, for herself, for her career, and most importantly, for her students. Protests and media attention. As news of the incident spread beyond the school walls, protests erupted outside Lincoln High. Students carrying signs gathered on the sidewalk, chanting slogans like "Respect Our Rights" and "Fairness for All." Parents joined in, holding banners that read "Protect Our Children" and "Justice Now." Local news crews arrived to cover the story, interviewing students, teachers, and parents. Marcus reluctantly agreed to speak to a reporter, encouraged by his dad to share his perspective. When Ms. Harper poured glue on my hair, I felt humiliated, Marcus said, his voice steady despite the cameras pointed at him. But this isn't just about me. It's about making sure no one else has to go through something like this. Teachers are supposed to protect us, not hurt us. His words resonated deeply, sparking conversations about discipline, bias, and respect in schools. Social media blew up with hashtags like hashtag stand with Marcus and hashtag teach with kindness, drawing attention from educators and activists across the country. Inside the school, tensions remained high. Some students organized rallies during lunchtime, urging their peers to stand together against injustice. Others wrote letters to the principal, offering suggestions for improving relationships between teachers and students. Elijah watched these efforts with pride. Though the road ahead would be challenging, he saw glimpses of hope. His students were speaking out, demanding change, and that was exactly what he wanted to encourage. A turning point. One Friday afternoon, Elijah called another assembly to update the school community on the steps being taken to address the situation. Standing at the podium, he addressed the packed auditorium. Over the past week, we've heard many voices, angry, scared, hopeful, determined. He began. Each one has reminded us of the importance of listening, learning, and growing. As a result, we've decided to implement several changes moving forward. He listed new initiatives designed to foster empathy and understanding within the school. These included mandatory diversity training for staff, peer mediation programs for students, and regular check-ins between teachers and administrators to address potential issues before they escalated. We're also creating a student advisory board, Elijah announced. This group will work directly with me to ensure your voices are heard and your concerns addressed. The announcement was met with cheers and applause. For the first time in weeks, the atmosphere in the auditorium felt lighter, as if a weight had been lifted. Moving forward. By the end of the month, things at Lincoln High began to settle, though scars remained. Marcus still caught whispers in the hallways, but fewer people laughed at him now. Instead, many approached him with kind words or simply smiled in solidarity. Ms. Harper, too, showed signs of improvement. She attended every diversity training session, took detailed notes, and actively sought feedback from her students. Slowly, some began to warm up to her again, not fully trusting her yet, but willing to give her a chance. As for Elijah, he continued leading by example, reminding everyone that progress wasn't linear. There would be setbacks, but the key was to keep moving forward, together. One evening, as Marcus and Elijah sat side by side watching TV, Marcus turned to his dad with a smile. "You know, Dad," he said, "I think things might actually get better." Elijah grinned back, ruffling his son's hair affectionately. "They will, Marcus, because you and everyone here are worth fighting for." As weeks turned into months, Lincoln High School slowly began to heal. The incident with Ms. Harper had left deep wounds, but it also created opportunities for growth, for individuals and the entire community. People were talking more openly about fairness, respect, and accountability than ever before. Change wasn't easy, but everyone was working together to make things better. For Marcus, life started to feel a little lighter. He still remembered the humiliation of that day in art class, but he also noticed how much stronger he'd become because of it. His friends, Jamal, Lisa, and Kevin, had been by his side through everything, supporting him when rumors spread or classmates made insensitive comments. Together, they became leaders in the new student advisory board Elijah had created. The advisory board met once a week after school. Students from different grades and backgrounds came together to discuss issues affecting their peers. They brainstormed ideas for improving communication between teachers and students, reviewed policies on discipline, and even planned events to celebrate diversity within the school. Marcus enjoyed being part of something bigger than himself. For the first time in a long time, he felt like his voice truly mattered. Ms. Harper, on the other hand, faced an uphill battle. After attending multiple training sessions and counseling meetings, she realized just how much work she needed to do, not just as a teacher, but as a person. She started keeping a journal, writing down her thoughts and reflections each night. It helped her process her emotions and hold herself accountable for her actions. One day, during a particularly tough lesson, she decided to try something new. Instead of snapping at a student who kept interrupting, she paused and took a deep breath. "I see you're excited to share your thoughts," she said calmly. "Let's finish this discussion first, and then we'll hear what you have to say." To her surprise, the classroom quieted down almost immediately. The same student who had been disruptive moments earlier nodded respectfully and waited patiently for their turn. That small moment gave Ms. Harper hope. Maybe she could change if she stayed committed. A new beginning. By spring, Miss Harper had earned back some trust, though not completely. Her classes weren't perfect, but they were improving. Students noticed her efforts to listen more and lecture less. She began incorporating group activities and discussions into her lessons, encouraging collaboration rather than competition. Marcus, too, found himself warming up to her slightly. One afternoon, after submitting an essay he'd worked hard on, Ms. Harper called him aside after class. "Marcus," she said softly, "I wanted to tell you how impressed I am with your progress. Your writing has improved so much since the beginning of the year." Marcus blinked, surprised. "Thanks, Miss Harper. I've been trying." "I know," she replied with a small smile. "And I'm proud of you for sticking with it, even after everything that happened." Though Marcus didn't fully forgive her yet, he appreciated the effort. It was a step, a small one, but still progress. Celebrating growth. In May, the school hosted its annual awards ceremony. This year, however, there was a special edition, the inaugural Courage Award. Elijah announced it during the event, standing at the podium with pride. "This award goes to someone who showed incredible strength and resilience in the face of adversity," he explained. "Someone who inspired others to stand up for fairness and equality. Tonight, we honor Marcus Thompson." The crowd erupted into applause as Marcus walked onto the stage, his cheeks flushed red. He hadn't expected this. Nobody had told him ahead of time. As he accepted the trophy, he glanced at his dad sitting in the front row, beaming with pride. "Thank you," Marcus said into the microphone, his voice trembling slightly. "This isn't just about me. It's about all of us. We've learned a lot this year about how to treat each other with kindness and respect. Let's keep building on that." When he finished speaking, the audience cheered again, louder this time. Marcus returned to his seat, feeling a mix of emotions, grateful, proud, and hopeful. Part 7. Resolution. Lessons learned. By the end of the school year, Lincoln High looked and felt different. The changes Elijah and the advisory board had implemented were starting to take root. Teachers participated in regular workshops on cultural sensitivity and classroom management. Students organized events celebrating diversity, from cultural fairs to poetry readings. Even the hallways seemed brighter, filled with colorful posters reminding everyone to respect each other and speak up. Ms. Harper decided to transfer to another school district over the summer. Though she loved teaching, she knew staying at Lincoln High might hinder her ability to rebuild trust completely. In her resignation letter, she thanked Elijah and the staff for supporting her through such a difficult time. She promised to carry the lessons she'd learned into her next role. Her departure saddened some students, including Marcus, who admitted he'd grown to respect her efforts. But he understood why she needed to leave, and he wished her well. Looking back, on the last day of school, Elijah gathered the advisory board for one final meeting. They sat in a circle, reflecting on everything they'd accomplished. "We've come a long way," Elijah said, smiling at the group. "But remember, this is just the beginning. There's always more work to do." Marcus raised his hand hesitantly. "Do you think things will stay better now, or will people forget once summer starts?" Elijah thought for a moment before answering. "Some might forget, yes. But the seeds we've planted here, respect, empathy, courage, they'll keep growing. And if we nurture them, they'll bloom into something amazing." Everyone nodded, satisfied with his answer. As they left the room, chatting excitedly about their plans for summer break, Marcus lingered behind for a moment. "Dad," he said, catching up to Elijah in the hallway, "do you think we really made a difference?" Elijah stopped walking and turned to face his son. "Absolutely," he replied firmly. "Change doesn't happen overnight, Marcus, but every step counts. You've shown everyone here what it means to lead with courage and compassion. Don't ever underestimate the power of that." Marcus smiled, feeling a sense of peace wash over him. He knew challenges would still arise, but he also knew he had the tools to face them. A brighter future. That evening, as father and son sat on the porch watching the sunset, Marcus felt a surge of gratitude. The past year had been tough, no doubt about it. But it had also taught him valuable lessons about resilience, forgiveness, and the importance of standing up for what's right. "Hey, Dad," Marcus said suddenly. "Yeah, son? Thanks for always having my back. I don't think I could have done any of this without you." Elijah chuckled, ruffling Marcus's hair affectionately. "You're stronger than you give yourself credit for, Marcus, but I'll always be here if you need me." As the sky turned shades of orange and pink, Marcus leaned back in his chair, feeling hopeful. He didn't know exactly what the future held, but one thing was certain. He and Lincoln High School were ready to face it head on. Epilogue. Years later, Marcus would look back on this time as a turning point, not just for himself, but for his entire school community. The incident with Ms. Harper had been painful, but it had sparked meaningful conversations and lasting change. Lincoln High continued to thrive, becoming a model for other schools and promoting inclusivity and empathy. Students graduated with not only academic skills, but also a deeper understanding of how to treat others with kindness and respect. As for Marcus, he carried the lessons he'd learned into adulthood. Whether navigating friendships, relationships, or professional challenges, he approached life with courage and compassion, qualities he developed during those difficult months at Lincoln High. And whenever he felt overwhelmed, he remembered his dad's words: "We'll face whatever comes next together."